President Biden's national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, in one of his first interviews since President Biden left office, says that from a national security perspective, in his estimation, Trump's first 100 days in office have been a, quote, unadulterated disaster. He says, quote, President Trump and his team have gone at the core American advantages in the world and systematically tried to dismantle them across all of the major dimensions of the things that have been America's major advantages. In less than 100 days, President Trump has put them all at risk. He says, quote, this is about the core foundations of American power and purpose in the world. And President Trump's effort, essentially, to knock them out. Joining us now is Jake Sullivan, former national security advisor to President Biden. Mr. Sullivan, I really appreciate you being here. I know you haven't done many interviews, and I really appreciate you being here tonight for this one.
What happens when a nation begins to erode the very institutions that made it a global superpower? That's the central concern raised by Jake Sullivan, President Biden's former national security advisor, in one of his first major interviews since Biden left office. His message is blunt. From a national security standpoint, Donald Trump's first 100 days as president were nothing short of catastrophic. In Sullivan's words, the early Trump presidency amounted to a complete and unfiltered disaster, targeting and in some cases dismantling the very pillars that have defined America's leadership role in the world. And he wasn't speaking in metaphors or exaggerations. He made it clear that this was a deliberate, systematic effort that threatened to undo decades of strategic advantage in less than 100 days. So, what are these core American advantages that Sullivan says Trump placed at risk? Let's start with alliances. The U.S. has long enjoyed a network of deep, mutually beneficial partnerships that no other power, not China, not Russia, can rival. These alliances aren't just diplomatic formalities. They are hard-earned strategic assets that amplify American influence across every continent. According to Sullivan, Trump actively undermined them, either by questioning America's commitments or by treating partners as adversaries. This has led allies to question whether the U.S. can still be relied upon in moments of crisis. Next is America's unmatched ability to attract talent from around the globe. For decades, researchers, entrepreneurs, and students have come to the U.S. to build lives, launch companies, and pursue groundbreaking discoveries. Sullivan argues that this pipeline of talent is a core element of national power. We can draw on the talent of 7 billion people, he says, while countries like China must rely solely on their own population. Yet under Trump, America's image as a beacon for global talent dimmed. Immigration restrictions, visa uncertainties, and anti-immigrant rhetoric created a chilling effect, raising doubts about whether the U.S. remained a welcoming place for those who once saw it as the land of opportunity. Sullivan then turned to innovation, another defining strength. America's research and development ecosystem is unique. It thrives on collaboration between the government, private sector, and elite universities. This synergy has driven some of the most important technological advancements of the last century. Yet, Trump's administration proposed deep cuts to federal research funding and criticized universities, moves that Sullivan believes jeopardize the foundations of this system. He also pointed to the importance of America's economic institutions, particularly capital markets and the U.S. dollar. These tools give the U.S. unparalleled influence in global finance. But events like Trump's Liberation Day rally, which was intended to signal a return to normalcy, actually caused investors and foreign governments to question America's stability and long-term reliability. All of these elements, alliances, talent, innovation, economic trust, are built on a deeper structure, the Constitution and the rule of law. Sullivan emphasized that Trump's repeated challenges to legal norms and democratic institutions undermined this foundation. From attacks on the judiciary to disputes over election integrity, Sullivan suggested that these behaviors weakened the very core of American governance. When asked whether this damage could be permanent, Sullivan offered cautious optimism. He doesn't believe anything is truly irreversible because the American people have a long history of resilience and reinvention. However, he made clear that the harm done in such a short time was substantial and likely to have lasting effects, unless deliberately addressed. And then came a deeper question. If America loses these strengths, these unique traits, what kind of country does it become? Sullivan didn't mince words. He warned that Trump's approach could shift America closer to what he called a more authoritarian, more brutal model of power, akin to Russia or China, nations where might trumps law, where alliances are transactional or non-existent, and where institutions are hollowed out in favor of centralized control.
Well, Rachel, I wouldn't say this. I'm not a person who usually speaks in hyperbole. I say it because I genuinely believe it. You ask, what are those advantages? And there are a few. It begins with America's unique system of alliances. No other power in the world has the strong, capable allies the United States has enjoyed for decades, and Donald Trump is intent on busting up those alliances. It's our unique capacity to attract talent from around the world. We can count on the talent of 7 billion people. China can only count on the talent of 1 billion people. But Donald Trump is casting doubt on whether we will be a welcoming place for students and researchers and people who want to come here to start companies. It's about a unique system of scientific research and innovation.
He painted a troubling picture. World leaders in places like Beijing and Moscow watching the U.S. undo its own advantages with satisfaction. Allies turning elsewhere. France, for instance, actively encouraging global talent to skip the U.S. and come to Europe instead. And innovation, the engine of American prosperity, at risk due to assaults on science, education, and free thought. In short, Sullivan argues that Trump didn't just challenge political norms. He challenged the structural DNA of American global leadership. It's a powerful warning and a call to action. If the country hopes to reclaim and rebuild those core advantages, it will take not only a change in leadership, but a renewed national commitment to openness, partnership, and the rule of law.
Well, I mean, it certainly is taking us in the direction of a more authoritarian, more normal, more brutal great power. And that starts to look more like a China or a Russia. I mean, if you're sitting in Beijing right now and you're looking at what's happening in the United States, you're saying, we've spent a long time worried about these areas where the United States had a distinct advantage over us. We don't have the allies the U.S. had. Now it appears the American president's handing them away. We can't attract talent the way the United States does. Now France is going out and saying, hey, come to France because you're scared to go to the United States. We don't have that uniquely American innovation ecosystem, and yet the President of the United States is going at the basic research foundations and the institutions of higher learning that have set America apart. Amazing. So there is a kind of remarkable way in which our competitors and adversaries have got to be looking at this and saying, what the heck is going on? And we can't believe our luck.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Is America at a crossroads, or can it rebuild what's been lost? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth political analysis. Thanks for watching. Stay informed. What if the biggest threat to American power wasn't a foreign adversary, but an American president? In just 100 days, could decades of global leadership, strategic alliances, scientific dominance, and trust in democratic institutions be dismantled from within? Former National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says yes and warns we may be watching. America's transformation into something dangerously unrecognizable. Is this the beginning of an irreversible decline or a wake-up call we can't afford to ignore?